Hello all, and happy holidays. My initial plan for this week was to make this video a sort of positive thank you video. I'm immensely grateful to everybody out there who has watched these videos over the past 10 months, who has liked videos, shared videos, bought an essay. I'm tremendously grateful, and I really want to get that across. That was really going to be the main topic of this video, and then Rudy Giuliani had to shoot his mouth off. As some of you may be aware, last Saturday afternoon, 2 New York City cops were brutally murdered. The psycho that carried out this crime claimed some connection with protest movements against the terrible death of Eric Garner. Back in the 1980s, another psycho tried to kill President Ronald Reagan. He claimed that he did it in order to win the affection of Jodie Foster, a Hollywood actress. When that happened, nobody tried to blame Jodie Foster. Unfortunately, we can't say the same thing today. 2 New York establishment Republicans have come out and tried to link these terrible, terrible murders to the actions of Mayor Bill de Blasio and President Obama. I cannot begin to express to you how angry these statements make me. But, in the spirit of the season, I'd like to turn this around and not look at it from a position of anger, but to try to be a little more sympathetic. And when I look at it in that way, all I can really feel for Rudy Giuliani and George Pataki is pity. Right now I'm reading an amazing book by Rick Perlstein called Nixonland. It's about that period in the 1960s and the 1970s when the United States was going through tremendous political changes, specifically in the ways that people talked about race. It was during this period that the old politics of explicit racism and segregation made a subtle transition into a new, more veiled racist politics that talked about crime and urban problems. It was a very real change, and it was a change for the better, but it also brought about our insane mass incarceration system and set in motion the forces that have created the issues that have been thrown in our face over the past year. I think what has been happening over the past year is another great change. I think that 4 or 5 years from now, we'll begin to talk about race in a very different way, and we'll be embarrassed about the old way of talking about things. 5, 10, 50 years from now, we'll look back at the way we talked about race and crime in the 90s and in the last decade, and we'll be just as embarrassed as we are now when we look back at the 1950s and the 1960s, and the ways that they talked about race and segregation back then. And that's why I think that the appropriate way to look at the statements is with pity. Think about how they're going to look 10, 20 years from now. You may not enjoy their politics, but it's impossible to deny that both Governor Pataki and Mayor Giuliani have had long and very successful political careers. But the way that they're going to be remembered is not as the people who turned New York into a safe corporate wonderland. Mayor Giuliani is not going to be remembered as America's mayor on 9/11. These guys are going to be remembered as 21st century George Wallaces, as 21st century Bull Connors. It's actually quite sad to watch politicians at the ends of their careers debase themselves in this way. This holiday season, if you're lucky enough to be sitting down with family and friends, think of those less fortunate. Among them, think about Rudy Giuliani and George Pataki, who have fallen far behind the wave of history and don't even know it yet. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up in the new year, and I hope I will see you here. Thanks for watching.